This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
We finally have our first marquee game of the 2024 college football season. It is Georgia taking on Alabama, and it is going to be a real fun one down there. We're going to preview that game today, letting you know top bets within that game at FanDuel Sports. We're going to talk about some other key games across Week 5, talk about which teams could potentially go undefeated for this year, and lay out the top bets at FanDuel Sportsbook by talking to Kent Padgett and picking his brain on this week's slate. This is Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as mentioned by Kent Padgett. Check him out on X at kntpdgtt. Find his work over on the FanDuel social accounts, the FanDuel TikTok, and much more. Kent, we are on to Week 5, massive slate on tap. How you doing today?
Massive slate on tap, Jim. I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I am just pumped to watch all of this unfold. It is going to be a true delight, and getting a game this big, this early in the season, it kind of just, I feel like, sets the table for what should be, at least in my lifetime, probably the most fun college football season ever.
I agree with that. It's like there's been so much hype this year. We have obviously the SEC. There's 5 teams at the top right now. Finally getting to see them start going at each other is just perfect. And to have it in September, like, this is amazing.
It is going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, we'll discuss that game. We'll talk about what Kent is seeing overall in that game, how those two teams match up, and his favorite bets at FanDuel Sportsbook, plus some thoughts on the Louisville Notre Dame game and Illinois at Penn State as well, along with Kent's favorite bets for Week 5. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. We're with you Monday through Friday, breaking down the top bets in the college football and NFL, Monday through Friday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And of course, now also live on our brand new YouTube page. You can find that by going to my Twitter account at JimSannes. Check out a link to that there. We are streaming these shows live now to get you these most up-to-date lines before things move when applicable. So if you want the most up-to-date lines, make sure you're subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube page, FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. Hit the alarm bell as well. Leave a thumbs up if you're watching YouTube. We appreciate all of you over there as always. And again, live six times per week total, including the DFS show, which will be coming your way tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Hey, NFL fans, you can make every moment more this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Now, Kent, before we talk about the games in Week 5, I do want to talk to you about a fun market that is now posted over at FanDuel Sportsbook. That is the odds on whether a team will go undefeated across the regular season for this year. Texas is the most likely team to run the table. They are plus 205 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Any interest in Texas, any interest in other teams to go undefeated at FanDuel Sportsbook for this year?
Yeah, I love the idea of this. When you look at Texas, like, look at their SEC schedule. It's kind of like easy-ish by SEC terms. I think they'll be able to handle Oklahoma, and they're like, well, I'll get to the Georgia game in a second. Their third hardest game of the season is going to be Texas A&M on the road. I think it's the last week of the season, but really, like, they should be able to handle both of those teams. So this is really a bet of, can Texas beat Georgia in Austin at plus 205? And I kind of like the juice there. I mean, plus 205 is good. Now, as I'm looking through these, Miami at plus 260. Miami has an even easier schedule than Texas. And I know Miami's not quite on Texas's level, but Miami at plus 260, you're kind of betting on them to beat Louisville. It looks like that's going to be the only ranked opponent they play the rest of the season. Um, Kind of a cakewalk of a schedule. So I like the Texas bet at plus 205 because in my head it's like that's the bet to beat
Sure.
Georgia. But Miami at plus 260 to beat Louisville, that one seems like that one's sticking out to me as this is the one to hammer.
Miami right now is 4-0 thus far. Offense look good. Defense has been okay, I guess is what I would say with Miami so far. But like you said, the schedule's not that bad. So Kent, if you're picking between those two, Texas plus 205 or Miami plus 260, which way are you leaning?
I'm going with the U on that one.
Okay. All right. They're back. I mean, Texas is back. The U is back. We are fully back with college football. And again, you can check out all those odds at FanDuel Sportsbook to see who will go undefeated for this year. We're going to get to the Alabama versus Georgia game in a bit. But I want to start things off here by talking about a couple of other fun games scattered across this week 5 slate. Let's begin here with Louisville at Notre Dame. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, Notre Dame favored by 6.5. Total is 45.5. And Notre Dame has bounced back in a pretty big way, Kent, since that loss to Northern Illinois. But Louisville, 3-0, beat Georgia Tech last week. How do you see this game playing out?
Yeah, so I was just talking about Louisville. They've got Miami coming up, but this is one of those where I think Louisville is going to be a little bit outmatched. I know, so they're 3-0 against the spread. They had a gritty win against Georgia Tech where they were beneficiary of a fumble recovery in the end zone. But this is really like their first big, like, hey, we're ranked in the top 15. Bright lights are on. Everybody's watching because it's Notre Dame. And I think it's going to be a little bit of like are we ready for this stage yet? And Notre Dame, like we saw them slip up to Northern Illinois, but the way they bounce back against Purdue makes me think that when this team is dialed in and they've got their foot on the gas, they can go. And that's the kind of vibe I think they're going to walk in and see, oh, Louisville's ranked 15th. Let's step on that gas. Let's go. And, I love the coach Marcus Freeman. The quarterback Riley Leonard's a stud. I think Notre Dame kind of flexes some muscle here. And I trust Riley Leonard a lot in the big spot more than I trust this Tyler Shuck at Louisville. So I think like my initial thought here, 28-14 Notre Dame. So I think they cover fairly easily.
All right. That spread again is 6.5 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Notre Dame is minus 110. I do want to go back to that Northern Illinois game because you mentioned Riley Leonard's a stud. I agree with you. Like at Duke, he was a nightmare to watch if you're not a Duke fan. And he had a slip up there. There were questions of whether or not they'd stick with him and stuff like that. So what happened? Are you writing that as off as being a fluke in that Northern game? Or how are you kind of viewing that one now that we've seen Notre Dame play better since then?
Yeah, they redeemed themselves the next week. It's kind of hard, when we're 3 and 4 games into a year, it's like, can we put an asterisk and say that game was an outlier? But as we'll talk later with Georgia and Kentucky, I'm giving some of these teams a break for like an outlier game, especially with Notre Dame, the way they bounce back. So I'm not really, I'm counting that as just one of those wacky college football moments more so than exposing a big flaw in Notre Dame.
Okay. I think that does make sense too. And based
And
on
I'll
what we've seen
also,
so far. Yeah, go ahead.
and also, not to be the guy that's like a loss is a good thing, but Notre Dame cannot afford to lose like another game if they're going to
Sure.
make the playoff. So they have that gas pedal I mentioned mashed, I think, and that was that the Northern Illinois game wake up call.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to slip up again here. I think like I said, I think this is a 2 touchdown win for the Irish.
All right. So Kent likes the Irish to cover minus 6.5, minus 110 at FanDuel Sportsbook as they take on Louisville. Big matchup in the Big Ten this weekend. Illinois going on the road to Happy Valley, taking on Penn State. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, Penn State is favored by 17.5. Total in this game is 47.5. And Illinois got a huge win last week in Lincoln. Very tough environment there. Another tough spot here going to Penn State. Can they cover again, or does Penn State lay the lumber in this game?
I think Penn State's going to lay the lumber in this one. I don't know if you've seen the Brett Bielema press conferences where he's saying Lincoln, Nebraska is a tougher place to play than Happy Valley. Kind of a wild take, and I'm not sure the fans are going to receive that one too well. So Happy Valley night game, like this place is going to be rocking. But Illinois really did impress me against Nebraska. That was an awesome game. But don't forget here, I know Illinois is good; they're undefeated, but they were like Nebraska missed 2 opportunities there. It was the Raiola, like he had the guy open, misses the pass. Then the field goal, they missed the field goal. The narrative is, coming in of Illinois, this hot undefeated team. they really should have a loss here. Um, so, and I kind of think the 17.5 is priced in almost as if they did lose.
Yeah.
But I just think that like Penn State is a monster. Penn State's 11-3-1 in their last 50 against the spread, 11-3-1 in their last 15 Big Ten games. And I'm not betting against that, especially at home. So I think Penn State kind of steps on them here. And I see this one being about like a 31-10 type of game.
Now, I never had the pleasure of going to a game at Happy Valley, but I will say in Brett Bielema's defense, Lincoln's nuts. I was at a game there in 2013, 2012, 2013, and the stadium was shaking. So, and like it's all red. It's like it's pretty concerning. Now I'd love to go to Happy Valley. So if anyone has tickets, hit me up. Love to go. So like
I'm gonna go
it
ahead and
is a
say
tough
same on
environment.
that.
Yeah. We'll make this a covering the spread group trip out
Yeah,
to Penn State sometime at some point. So it was impressive, but kind of like you said, the final score may not be reflective of what happened there. So I'm kind of on board with you where I want to see a bit more from Illinois before I fully come off of the preseason prior. So this is an okay team, but not a team that can beat Penn State on the road yet.
that's right. And not to take away from Nebraska's environment, I haven't been there. I'm sure it is crazy, but I think the point here about Bielema is, maybe you keep a comment like that to yourself before walking into a night game in Happy Valley.
I think that maybe exactly you butter up your future opponents and you can talk
That's
trash in the
right.
past opponents that are already in the past. Okay.
That's
So
right.
Kent is on Penn State minus 17.5. That is minus 108 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Let's move now, Kent, to the big game this weekend. It is Georgia at Alabama right now. FanDuel Sportsbook. Georgia favored by 2.5. Total in this game is 48.5. So Georgia, tough game last week, did squeak out a win against Kentucky, but still enters this game at 3-0. Can they cover this game where they are road favorites, or does Alabama pull off the upset here?
I don't know about covering. This is going to be one of those instant classic games that I think comes down to a point or two. Um, I think, like I said earlier, the Kentucky game, Georgia looked terrible. That's one you just throw out the tape on. I'm not worried about it. I'm counting that as an outlier because this is all about the coaches, I feel like. Kirby has this reputation. Kirby can't beat Alabama, but it's Kalen DeBoer's first game on the big stage. It's just like two heavyweights of the last decade battling again, and I can't wait. The talent on the field, the number of 4 and 5 star players that each has. So Alabama has 67 players that are either a 4-star or a 5-star, blue chippers here. They have 67 of those. Georgia has 69 of them.
Man.
Like, there is a legitimate chance these teams have NFL talent like 3 deep on their roster. Um, but another wild stat I've seen here. So Georgia, over their last 51 games, they're 48-0 against everybody else. 48-0, but against Nick Saban's Alabama teams, they're 1-2. So I feel like Saban was the Kirby stopper.
Hmm.
Kirby was his disciple. He knew how to beat him. Saban's gone now. Kirby's the best coach in college football. And if this game is close, I trust Kirby Smart and Carson Beck throwing the ball down the field if they have to in the fourth quarter. I trust them more than I trust Kalen DeBoer and Jalen Milroe at this point. One more kind of piece here on Georgia and why I think Kirby's going to be so fired up for this game. Remember last year, Alabama spoiled their shot at a three-peat in the SEC championship game and kept Georgia out of the playoff. Um, Georgia, remember, they were going to be favored. And this was something that like sportsbooks came out and said, hypothetically, Georgia would be
Sure.
favored against every team in the playoff, including Michigan. And they just didn't get into the Final Four. They just didn't get into the playoff. And so I know this has been eaten at Kirby Smart. They ruined his three-peat, and he knows how close they were. I think he is going to be unbelievably prepared for this game, like even more so than he was against TCU in the national championship when they won 65-7. Um, is also in that SEC championship game last year. Alabama's best skilled players, Isaiah Bond and Roydell Williams, they've transferred out. So everything I'm saying here points to Georgia winning this game. I know Alabama's at home, a little bit of an advantage there in Bryant-Denny Stadium, but I think, and I don't know about 2.5, but I think Georgia's going to squeak out this game somehow. Kirby Smart's just going to get it done. And I think the bet here I'm going to take is the Georgia money line.
Okay, that Georgia money line right now at FanDuel Sports, we're currently sitting at minus 126 to get that. So not actually a bad price because the minus 2.5 is minus 105. And you think it's going to be a close game. Think it could come down to some late game nonsense. I think that taking the money line here does make a lot of sense at minus 126 for this one. Now, we talked about this last week where I kind of wanted your recipe if you think that the other team can pull off an upset. If you are Kalen DeBoer, you're Jalen Milroe, what's the recipe here to defeating Georgia and kind of bucking that trend you mentioned where he's, where they're 48-0 against everyone who's not Nick Saban?
Yeah, it's gonna be like if Bama's gonna win, it's gonna be Milroe getting free in that first half and then putting up like a 7 or a 10 point lead going into the half. Um, and they've got this Ryan Williams, 17-year-old skill player, getting him involved early. I just like if this game comes down to the trenches and it's just a physical game, I just feel like Kirby and Georgia get it done. But if Alabama can have their guys get going early, that's gonna. I mean, I don't really see it happening like that. I think it's just gonna be a nasty game in the trenches. But if it's a high scoring game and Milroe's getting loose and getting out in the space, then Bama could get it done.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to pull some stuff here because Georgia is a very, very good team, despite that slim win last week. So Kent is on the Georgia money line minus 126 at FanDuel Sportsbook for what should be one of the banner games of this year. Let's open up the board now, Kent. A lot of other games on the schedule for week number 5. Where else is seeing value at FanDuel Sportsbook this week?
So I like USC minus 15.5 over Wisconsin. We talked about Wisconsin, I believe it was the week before last when Alabama came in and just trounced them. I don't think Wisconsin is any good. It's in country, but and I feel like USC is going to come out fired up after the loss to Michigan last week. They lost to a team that had 32 passing yards and really just kind of said, "We're grown men. We're embarrassing you. We're running I formation up the middle here." And I think they're going to come out with something to prove at home. So I think USC handles their business there at 15.5. Also, the Ohio State game. I think this is one of those situations where the SEC is getting all the attention.
Yeah.
Ohio State's playing Michigan State. They're 24-point favorites. And I think Ohio State's going to be like, hey, don't forget about us. Like, everybody's focused on Georgia and Bama as if this is like a preamble to the national championship. Don't forget, we're still loaded out here. And I think they're going to go on the road, and it's going to be one of those vintage Buckeye performances where it's just 50-10 before you can blink, and they easily cover 23.5. I know it's in East Lansing, but I don't think this one's going to be close.
Only minus 3,500 for the money line for Ohio State. So a modest money line for Ohio State. Their spread is minus 23.5 and minus 105. The other one Kent mentioned was USC minus 15.5 as they take on Wisconsin out in California this week. That's all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. Kent, I want to thank you once again for joining us here today to break down your thoughts on college football week number 5. Enjoy what should be a delicious college football slate. We'll talk to you once again in the very near future.
Thank you, man. I can't wait. Can't wait for this weekend.
Gonna be a lot of fun. Find Kent on X at kntpdgtt. Check him out on the FanDuel socials, including TikTok as well. I am on X at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Reminder, make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts, but also check us out on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. We got the DFS show coming tomorrow live at 10 a.m. Eastern, and of course, the NFL Best Bets tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, live on this page as well, with Dubs Anderson breaking down his best bets for NFL week 4. Subscribe to that YouTube page and leave us a thumbs up if you're watching after the fact as well. Want to thank you all for tuning in. Want to give a big thank you as well to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for all of his work on the video side of things. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.